Marsh had been awake for 31 hours, and her coffee had gone cold 6 hours ago. She sat in the pilot seat of her freighter, the Dusty Mule, watching the massive shape of Seven grow larger through her viewport. The station was enormous, a spinning wheel of metal and lights that served as the gateway to the collective's core worlds. Thousands of ships passed through here every day, and was just one more tired human hauling cargo across the stars. She rubbed her eyes and checked her manifest for the 10th time. 50 tons of soybeans, 20 tons of wheat seed, and 15 tons of farming equipment. The colonists on New Montana needed these supplies before their planting season began. She was already 2 days behind schedule because of an engine problem near Jupiter, and she did not want to spend more time than necessary dealing with alien bureaucracy. The docking procedures took another hour, guided her ship into the assigned bay, locked down the engines, and grabbed her identification chip. She caught her reflection in a dark screen and winced. Her brown hair was a mess, her eyes had dark circles under them, and her jumpsuit had a coffee stain on the sleeve. She looked exactly like what she was, a cargo hauler who needed a shower and a bed. The customs hall was crowded with dozens of species. Saw tall with their 4 arms and skin, small furry who chattered in high-pitched voices, and massive who moved slowly on 6 legs. She joined the line for independent haulers and waited while the queue moved forward at a painful pace. The customs officer at the front was unnamed, according to his badge. He had the tired expression of someone who had processed 10,000 travelers and expected 10,000 more, handed him her chip and waited while he scanned her cargo manifest. "Terran vessel Dusty Mule," said in a bored voice. "Agricultural supplies bound for human colony New Montana. Purpose of transit through collective space." "Shortest route," said. "Going around adds 3 weeks." Made a note on his screen. "Please step through the biometric scanner for species verification." Walked toward the archway that served as the scanner. She had done this dozens of times before. The machine would read her biology, confirm she was human, classify her as a Class 4 because Earth was apparently terrifying to most aliens, and then she would be on her way. The whole process usually took about 5 seconds. She stepped through the archway and waited for the familiar chime. Instead, the scanner made a sound she had never heard before. It was a deep tone that seemed to vibrate through her bones. Then every light in the customs hall turned red. Alarms began screaming from every direction. Security doors slammed shut with heavy thuds that echoed through the chamber. Stood very still and looked around. Every alien in the hall had frozen in place, was staring at his screen with all 4 of his hands trembling. His skin had turned almost white. "What?" asked. "Did I set something off? I swear I declared everything in my cargo." Did not answer. He was reading something on his screen, and his mouth was opening and closing without making sounds. Leaned over to look at the display. The words were in Galactic Common, which she could read well enough after years of hauling cargo. The screen showed her image, her biological data, and a classification she had never seen before. It read, "Precursor-Class entity detected. Containment Protocol Omega initiated." "What does Precursor-Class mean?" asked. Made a small squeaking sound and then collapsed. His body hit the floor with a soft thump and realized he had fainted. Armed security officers were rushing into the hall now. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that hummed with energy. Counted at least 30 of them, and they were all pointing their guns at her. She raised her hand slowly. "I really think there has been some kind of mistake." An older alien pushed through the security line. He was a species that looked somewhat like tall birds with scales instead of feathers. His uniform was covered in medals and ribbons, and he moved with the careful steps of someone who had seen many things in a long life. A badge on his chest identified him as station commander. Stopped a few meters away from and studied her with eyes that did not blink. His expression was impossible to read, but his hands were shaking slightly. "Human," he said, Do you know what you are? Tired said, very tired. I have been awake for over 30 hours, my coffee is cold, and I have colonists waiting for soybeans. Can someone please explain what is happening? Looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at the scanner, then its unconscious body, then back at. The scanner has identified you as Precursor-Class, he said. This has never happened before. In the 300 years since this station was built, in the thousands of years since the collective received these scanners as gifts from the precursors themselves, no living being has ever triggered this classification. Processed this information. She had heard of the precursors. Everyone had. They were an ancient race that had vanished millions of years ago, leaving behind ruins and technology that no one could understand. Some species them as gods. Others feared what their return might mean. So the scanner thinks I am connected to a species that has been dead for millions of years, said. The scanners do not think, replied. They do not guess. They do not make mistakes. They were built by the precursors and they have never been wrong about anything. The security officers had not lowered their weapons, could feel their fear like a physical weight in the air. These were trained soldiers who had probably faced pirates and criminals and all sorts of dangers, and they were terrified of her. Lowered her hand slowly. She looked at the scanner, at the unconscious customs officer, at the commander who was trying very hard to stay calm. Then she looked at the security officers and their shaking weapons. So, she said, does this precursor classification come with any perks, like free coffee, because I could really use some coffee right now? Nobody answered. Nobody moved. Nobody seemed to know what to do with a human who had just been labeled as something impossible and was asking about coffee. Sighed, it was going to be a very long day. They gave a room instead of a cell, which she supposed was a good sign. The quarters were comfortable, with a soft bed, a clean bathroom, and a window that looked out at the stars. They also gave her coffee, which she appreciated more than anything else. She had been sitting on the bed for 3 hours, drinking coffee and waiting for someone to explain what was happening. The door opened and Station Commander entered, followed by 2 aliens had not seen before. One was a species that looked like tall humanoids with silver skin and large dark eyes. She wore formal robes that marked her as someone important. The other was smaller, with wrinkled blue skin and 3 eyes that blinked at different times. He carried a bag filled with scanning equipment. Marsh said, "This is Ambassador of the Collective Council, and this is Doctor, our leading expert on precursor archaeology." Nodded at both of them. "Nice to meet you. Can someone please tell me what is going on? I have cargo that needs to be delivered." Ambassador looked at her with an expression that mixed confusion with something like awe. "You are asking about cargo. Do you understand what has happened?" "A scanner called me Precursor-Class," said. "I do not know what that means, and nobody has explained it to me yet." Doctor set down his bag and pulled out a small device. "May I scan you? It will not hurt." Shrugged, "Go ahead." The scientist ran his device over her body several times, studying the readings with all 3 of his eyes. His expression grew more amazed with each pass. When he finished, he sat down heavily in a chair, as if his legs could not hold him anymore. "It is true," he whispered. "The markers are there, in her genetic structure. They are identical to the samples we found in the tombs on Prime." "What markers?" asked. "What tombs? Can someone please start from the beginning?" Activated a holographic display in the center of the room. Images appeared in the air. Ancient ruins, strange symbols, technology that looked like nothing had ever seen. The precursors, began, were a civilization that existed 3 million years ago. They were the first intelligent species in this galaxy as far as we know. They built wonders that we still cannot understand. They created technology that we still cannot replicate. And then, suddenly, they vanished. "Vanished how?" asked. "We do not know," Doctor said. One day they were everywhere, ruling the galaxy, building marvels on 1,000 worlds. The next day they were gone. No bodies, no explanation, just empty cities and silent machines. Ambassador stepped forward. The precursors left gifts for the species that came after them. The scanners we use at transit hubs are one of those gifts. They can read the biology of any living creature with perfect accuracy. They have never made a mistake in the hundreds of thousands of years since we began using them. Until today, said. They did not make a mistake today either, Doctor said. His voice was shaking. I have analyzed your genetic structure. You carry markers that are identical to precursor genetic material. Not similar. Identical. Your DNA contains sequences that should only exist in creatures that died 3 million years ago. Stared at him. She tried to process what he was saying, but it did not make sense. She was just a cargo hauler from Earth. Her parents had been farmers in Kansas. Her grandparents had been farmers in Kansas. There was nothing special about her family or her history. That is impossible, she said. And yet here we are, replied. The holographic display changed to show star maps covered in marks. The precursors are not just ancient history to us, continued. Some species worship them as gods, others fear them. Wars have been fought over single artifacts. Entire civilizations have risen and fallen based on who controlled precursor technology. And now a scanner says I am connected to them, said. You are not just connected to them, Doctor said. According to every test I have run, you carry their genetic legacy. You are, in some way that I do not yet understand, their descendant. Sat quietly for a long moment. She looked at the holographic images of ancient ruins and alien technology. She looked at the three aliens watching her with a mixture of fear and wonder. She thought about her parents on their farm, about her ordinary life hauling cargo between stars, about the colonists on New Montana who were waiting for their soybeans. Okay, she said finally. Let us say I believe you. Let us say I am somehow connected to creatures that died millions of years before humans even existed. What does that mean? What am I supposed to do about it? Ambassador exchanged a look with. That is what we are trying to determine. The collective council is gathering an emergency session. Religious leaders are demanding access to you. Military commanders are arguing about whether you represent a threat or an opportunity. I am a cargo hauler, said. I fly soybeans between planets. I am not a threat or an opportunity. I am just trying to do my job. You do not understand, Doctor said. The precursors were the most powerful beings this galaxy has ever known. If you carry their legacy, if their potential exists within you, then you may be capable of things that no living creature has been able to do in 3 million years. Finished her coffee and set down the cup. She looked at the ancient ruins floating in the holographic display, at the technology that had baffled scientists for longer than human civilization had existed. Right now, she said, the only thing I am capable of is being very tired and very confused. My cargo is sitting in my ship. My colonists are waiting. Whatever this precursor thing means, I still have a job to do. The three aliens stared at her in disbelief. She had just been told she might be connected to an ancient godlike race, and she was worried about soybeans. Shrugged, what? People need to eat. That does not change just because some scanner thinks I am special. None of them had any idea how to respond to that. Word spread faster than could have imagined. Within 2 days, hundreds of ships surrounded 7. Some were military vessels from various collective species, their weapons powered and ready. Some were small craft carrying scientists who wanted to study her, and some were pilgrim ships, filled with followers of religions that the precursors as gods. Watched them through her window and felt sick to her stomach. She had not asked for any of this. She had not done anything except walk through a scanner, and now half the galaxy seemed to think she was either a messiah or a monster. A message arrived on her 3rd day of confinement. Someone had requested permission to dock at the station, claiming to be her family, stared at the name on the request and felt a complicated mix of emotions. Pete, her ex-husband. She told to let him through. Pete arrived an hour later, escorted by security officers who looked nervous about everything. He was a tall man with messy blonde hair and kind eyes, wearing the same worn jacket he had owned since they first met 10 years ago. He was carrying two things: a bag of her clothes from the dusty mule and a thermos of coffee from the ship's machine. "You look terrible," he said. "Thanks," replied. "You always knew how to make me feel special." Pete sat down across from her and handed her the thermos. The coffee was exactly how she liked it, strong and bitter with no sugar. He had remembered after 3 years of being divorced. "The news feeds are calling you the returned one," Pete said. "There is a priest outside who wants to build a temple in your honor. There is an admiral who wants to lock you up forever. And there is a scientist who keeps trying to bribe the guards so he can take samples of your hair." "I noticed the ships," said. "How did you even get through?" Pete smiled. "I told them I was your husband and that I was bringing you clean underwear. Apparently that confused them enough that they let me pass." Laughed for the first time in days. It felt good, even though nothing about her situation was funny. "I flew the dusty mule here," Pete continued. "Your cargo is still on board. The colonists have been sending messages asking when their supplies will arrive. I told them you were dealing with some bureaucratic delays." That is one way to describe it. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Their marriage had ended badly, but somewhere underneath the hurt feelings and arguments, they had always been friends. Was grateful he was here, even if she would never say it out loud. "So," Pete said, "ancient godlike aliens, that is new." "Apparently my DNA has markers that match theirs," said. "They think I am somehow descended from creatures that died 3 million years ago, which makes no sense because humans have only existed for a couple 100,000 years." "Nothing about humans makes sense to these aliens," Pete replied. "Remember when that merchant saw you eat a pepper and thought you were trying to kill yourself?" Smiled at the memory. He called emergency medical services. Humans are already strange to them. Maybe being connected to the precursors is just one more strange thing. The door opened and Doctor rushed in, his 3 eyes blinking rapidly. He was carrying a tablet covered in data that could not read. "Something is happening," the scientist said. "Your genetic markers, they are changing." "Changing how?" asked. "They are activating. Sequences that were dormant are beginning to express themselves. It is happening slowly, but it is definitely happening." Doctor looked at her with an expression that mixed excitement with fear. "Have you noticed anything unusual? Any changes in how you think or feel or perceive the world?" Thought about it. She had been so focused on her situation that she had not paid much attention to herself. But now that she considered it, there had been small things. Moments when she understood what aliens were saying before the translator caught up. Times when she looked at precursor symbols in the holographic displays and almost felt like she recognized them. "Maybe," she said, "small things, I thought I was just tired." Doctor made notes on his tablet. "The transformation is accelerating. Whatever you are becoming, whatever the precursors intended for their genetic legacy, it is beginning to manifest in you." "What does that mean?" Pete asked. "Is she in danger?" "I do not know," Doctor admitted. "Nothing like this has ever happened before. We have no records, no guidelines, no understanding of what the precursors planned for their descendants." A new alarm began sounding through the station. Looked out her window and saw that the military ships had changed position. They were forming into battle lines. His voice came through the room's communication system. "Admiral of the fleet has declared that humanity represents an unacceptable threat to galactic stability. He is calling for the immediate containment of all humans in collective space and a blockade of the Sol system." Felt her blood run cold. This was not just about her anymore. because she had walked through a scanner, because her DNA contained something ancient and unexplained. An alien admiral was threatening her entire species. Pete stood up and moved to stand beside her. "This is not your fault," he said quietly. "It does not matter whose fault it is," replied. "If they blockade Sol, billions of humans will be cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Colonies will starve. Ships will be stranded. People will die." She looked out at the growing fleet of warships and felt something shift inside her. The small moments of strange understanding were becoming stronger. She could almost hear something, like a voice speaking in a language she had never learned but somehow knew. Whatever was happening to her, whatever she was becoming, she could not let it destroy everything she loved. "I need to do something," she said. "What can you do?" Pete asked. "You are one person against a fleet." Did not have an answer, but she knew she had to try. Could not sleep that night. She lay in bed and stared at the ceiling while strange thoughts moved through her mind like fish swimming in deep water. Words in languages she had never heard. Images of places she had never seen. Memories that were not her own. When she finally gave up on rest and got out of bed, she felt pulled toward the door. Not physically pulled, but something inside her was pointing in a direction, insisting that she needed to go that way. She opened the door and found two guards standing outside. They looked surprised to see her awake at this hour. "I need to go somewhere," said. "You are not permitted to leave your quarters," one guard replied. Looked at him. Something in her eyes made him step back. She was not trying to threaten him, but whatever was waking up inside her must have shown on her face. "Please," she said, "something is calling me. I think it is important." The guards exchanged nervous glances. Then one of them spoke into his communicator, and a few minutes later arrived with Doctor close behind. "Where do you need to go?" asked. Pointed down a corridor she had never walked before. "That way, down. There is something below the station." "There is nothing below the station except maintenance systems and storage," said. "There is something older," replied. "Something that has been waiting." Doctor's eyes went wide. The precursor markers in her system. They must be resonating with something nearby. "Commander, we should follow her. This could be the discovery of a lifetime." Hesitated, then nodded. They walked together through empty corridors and down service elevators, going deeper into the station than had known existed. The pull inside her grew stronger with each step. She did not understand what was happening to her, but she trusted it. They reached a section of the station that was clearly old. The walls were different here, made of a material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Symbols covered the surfaces, symbols that recognized even though she had never seen them before. "This is impossible," whispered. "This section does not appear on any station schematics. It predates our construction by millions of years." "The precursors built here before you did," said. She was not guessing. She knew it the way she knew her own name. This was one of their outposts. When your people built 7, they built it on top of precursor foundations without knowing. They reached a door made of the same dark material as the walls. There was no handle, no control panel, no obvious way to open it. Placed her hand against the surface. The door recognized her. She felt it in her mind, a greeting from something ancient and patient. The door slid open without a sound. Inside was a chamber filled with soft blue light. The walls were covered in displays that activated as entered, showing star maps and genetic diagrams and histories written in flowing symbols. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and above the pedestal floated a sphere of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Welcome, descendant," a voice said. It came from everywhere and nowhere, speaking directly into his thoughts. "We have waited long for your arrival." "What are you?" asked out loud. "I am a keeper of knowledge," the voice replied. "A fragment of what we were, preserved to guide those who would come after. You carry our legacy within you, young one. You are the proof that our plan succeeded." Doctor was trembling so badly he could barely stand, had drawn his weapon but seemed unsure what to point it at, ignored them both and focused on the sphere of light. "What plan?" she asked. "What did the precursors do to humans?" The displays around the room shifted to show images of ancient laboratories and genetic sequences. When we knew our time was ending, we sought to preserve what we had learned. We could not save ourselves, but we could plant seeds. Across 1,000 worlds, we introduced our genetic material into developing species, hoping that one day, one of them would grow strong enough to carry our legacy forward. Felt cold despite the warm light of the chamber. You experimented on us, on humanity. You changed us without our knowledge or consent. "We gave you gifts," the voice replied. "Your adaptability, your resilience, your capacity to survive and thrive in conditions that would destroy other species. The traits that make humans unique in this galaxy come from us. And now those gifts are waking up in me. In you and in all your kind. You were simply the first to encounter a functioning scanner that could recognize what you are, but the potential exists in every human. You are all our children, though you did not know it." Stepped forward. If every human carries this potential, if they can all become like the precursors, then Admiral is right to be afraid. Humanity could become the dominant power in the galaxy overnight. "Could," said, "but that does not mean we would. Humans are not conquerors by nature. We are farmers and builders and explorers. We want to find new places and grow things and make friends with strange creatures. We do not want to rule anyone." The sphere of light pulsed brighter. "This is why we chose your species. Your aggression is balanced by compassion. Your strength is tempered by kindness. You fight when you must, but you would rather cooperate. This is the wisdom we hoped our descendants would carry." Turn to and Doctor. "You heard that. Humanity is not a threat. We are not going to become tyrants or gods. We are going to be what we have always been, just with a few extra gifts that we did not know we had." "Admiral will not care about intentions," said. "He cares about potential, and the potential for humanity to dominate the galaxy will terrify him and everyone like him." "Then we need to show them they are wrong," replied. "Not by fighting, not by hiding, but by being exactly who we are and proving that humans can be trusted with this legacy." She looked at the sphere of light one last time. "Can you broadcast a message to the whole galaxy? I want everyone to know the truth before someone decides to start a war over it." "I can," the voice said, "but once the truth is known, it cannot be unknown. Are you certain you want this?" Thought about the colonists waiting for their soybeans, about Pete standing by her side even after everything they had been through, about all the ordinary humans across the galaxy who were about to learn they carried something extraordinary inside them. "Yes," she said, "tell everyone, let them decide what to do with the truth." The sphere of light pulsed once, brilliantly, and felt the message go out into the void. The message reached every corner of the galaxy within hours. Had expected chaos, and chaos is what she got. Military fleets repositioned. Governments held emergency meetings. Religious leaders made declarations that ranged from celebration to condemnation. And humans everywhere looked at their hands and wondered what secrets lay hidden in their blood. Admiral responded by moving his fleet into attack position around 7. His ships outnumbered the station's defenses 10-1. He broadcast his ultimatum across all channels. Marsh would be surrendered to custody, and all humans in collective space would submit to containment until the threat they represented could be properly evaluated. Stood on the station's observation deck and watched the warships arrange themselves like predators circling prey. Pete stood beside her, along with an doctor and ambassador, who had been very quiet since the precursor chamber revealed its secrets. "He is going to attack," said. "I have known for 50 years. He does not make idle threats." "Then we need to give him a reason not to," replied. Before anyone could ask what she meant, new contacts appeared on the station's sensors. Ships were arriving from every direction, dozens at first, then hundreds. They were not warships. They were freighters and cargo haulers and passenger vessels and colony transports. They were human ships coming from every corner of the galaxy. Felt tears forming in her eyes. She had not called for help. She had not asked anyone to come, but they had come anyway. The human ships positioned themselves between fleet and the station. They were unarmed, unarmored, completely defenseless against military weapons. But they did not retreat. They simply waited, ordinary people in ordinary ships, standing between an alien admiral and one of their own. His voice came over the communication system. "This is foolishness. You cannot protect her. You will only die alongside her." A human voice responded, calm and clear. "Maybe, but we are not going anywhere. She is one of us and we do not abandon our own." More human ships arrived. Then more. The stream seemed endless, thousands of vessels ranging from tiny shuttles to massive cargo haulers. They came from Earth and Mars and the outer colonies and distant settlements that had never even heard of. They filled the space around Seven like a living shield. Walked to the communication console and opened a channel to everyone, human and alien alike. "My name is Marsh," she said. 3 days ago, I was just a cargo hauler trying to deliver soybeans to a colony. I did not ask to be labeled Precursor-Class. I did not ask to discover that my species carries an ancient genetic legacy. I did not ask for any of this." She paused, gathering her thoughts. When she spoke again, her voice carried something new, a depth and resonance that came from whatever was awakening inside her. "But here we are, and I want to be clear about something. Humanity did not choose this legacy, but we will not be punished for it. We are not gods. We are not conquerors. We are farmers and builders and pilots and teachers and doctors and 1,000 other ordinary things. We want the same things we have always wanted: to explore, to grow, to make friends, to build lives worth living." She looked at the human ships on the display, at all those ordinary people who had come to stand beside her. "The precursors gave us gifts we did not know we had. We will learn to understand those gifts. We will share what we discover. We will not use this legacy to dominate or destroy. That is not who we are." Ambassador stepped forward and spoke into the channel. "I believe her. I have watched this human for 3 days. She has been confused, frustrated, and tired. She has worried about her cargo and her colonists and her ex-husband. She has asked about coffee more than she has asked about power. This is not someone who wants to rule the galaxy." A new voice joined the conversation. It was High Priest, leader of the Temple of Forgotten Light. His pilgrim ships had been waiting at the edge of the system, and now they moved forward to join the human vessels. "The precursors were wise," said. "They chose their heirs carefully. If they selected humanity, then humanity has earned that trust. My followers will stand with the humans. We will not allow them to be destroyed for the crime of being chosen." His fleet remained in attack position, but could see hesitation in their formations. The admiral had expected to face a single human and a space station. Instead, he was facing thousands of human ships, religious pilgrims willing to die for their beliefs, and growing uncertainty among his own officers. "Admiral," said quietly over a private channel, "if you fire on those ships, you will kill civilians, humans and pilgrims alike. The collective will never forgive you. Your own people will never forgive you." A long silence followed, held her breath. Finally, his voice came through, tight with anger but no longer threatening. "This is not over. The collective will be watching humanity closely. Any sign that you are becoming a threat, any hint that you are using the precursor legacy for conquest, and we will respond with everything we have." "Fair enough," replied. "Watch us. You will see exactly what I promised. Ordinary people doing ordinary things, just with a few extra surprises in our DNA." His fleet began to withdraw. The tension in the observation deck slowly released as officers breathed sighs of relief and Ambassador sat down heavily in a chair. Pete put his hand on shoulder. That was impressive. You sounded almost like a leader. I sounded like someone who really wants to finish her delivery run, replied. 3 weeks later, the Dusty Mule finally reached New Montana, guided her ship down through the atmosphere and landed at the colony's small spaceport. The colonists were waiting for her, a crowd of farmers and settlers who looked worried about their delayed supplies. She climbed out of her ship and started unloading cargo with Pete's help. The colonists joined in, forming a chain to move crates of soybeans and wheat seed and farming equipment. A young woman approached with a curious expression. "You are the one from the news, the precursor human." "I am also the one with your soybeans," replied. "Sorry I am late, it was a long trip." What was it like, being scanned as something ancient and powerful? Thought about the question. She thought about the alarms and the fear and the ships and the secrets hidden beneath the station. She thought about Pete bringing her coffee and thousands of humans coming to stand beside her, and an ancient voice welcoming her as a descendant. "Mostly tiring," she said honestly, "and confusing. I still do not really understand what I am or what it means, but I know who I am. That has not changed." She handed the young woman a crate of seeds. "Now help me unload this cargo. Your planting season is already late, and these beans are not going to plant themselves." The woman smiled and took the crate. Across the galaxy, other humans were beginning to feel the awakening. Small moments of strange understanding, flashes of ancient memory, the first hints of gifts they had never known they possessed. The universe was changing, and humanity was changing with it. But Marsh, the first human to be labeled Precursor-Class, was too busy unloading soybeans to notice. Some things never change, no matter how much else does.